Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Council District 12 for the City of Los Angeles encompasses the northwest side of the San Fernando Valley. Our guest today was not only re-elected to serve as council member for the district, but he has been a resident since 1978, which is over 40 years. I'm delighted to be joined today by Councilmember John Lee. So nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
All right, as I mentioned, and we've talked about a bit, that's a long time. You're staying in your home district. What is it about Council District 12 that makes you want to not only live there, but serve?
Sure, you know, it's the community that I was raised in. It's a community that I love so much. I think the reason why people moved to Council District 12, why they live there, are the same reasons why my parents moved there in 1978, because they wanted to have areas where they had good neighborhoods, where they had good schools, but most importantly, they wanted to move to an area where people take the time to actually get to know their neighbor. I know on my street, my kids can go to any number of houses to borrow sugar or, you know, eggs or something, but I mean, they're more likely to order it on Uber Eats or something like that. But those houses would be available to them because we do know our neighbors, and it's just I feel that all throughout the district.
You know, actually, you made me think of something. You know, a lot of things stay the same, but a lot of things change. So, obviously, as a council member, you're responsible for making sure that it's good change and that positive things are happening. So, what is happening in the district right now?
Well, I think from, you know, if you're talking about from the time that I've lived there, one of the best things that's happened to Council District 12 is just the diversity of our communities. You know, it's not broken up into little areas where people are segregated. You take any block, you take my cul-de-sac, for example, and you have really people from all different walks of life living on that cul-de-sac, living together. And it's just, you know, it really makes my district so special. As far as what's happened, you know, recently, obviously, you know, through the last couple of years where we're dealing with the pandemic, that has really, honestly, been something that has surprised me about this community, even more so than, you know, before. Like, I always believed in this community. I always believed that they would step up when their neighbors, you know, needed help. But during that time, you saw people, family members, friends, total strangers helping one another out, and it just reaffirmed why I love my district so much.
I know during the pandemic you had a huge priority placed on, you know, small businesses to make sure that they survive, and I know that there was a lot of, you know, support from your office to help those businesses. So now you have a little bit of a, you know, Tuesday morning quarterback view on it. How did the businesses in CD12 fare after the pandemic? Yeah, comparatively, actually.
Sure. You know, I think you had a lot of small businesses trying to really think, do we keep our doors open? Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to shut down for a while. Do we have enough resources to keep us going so that we can reopen and restart our business? We wanted to alleviate that fear from them. And so what we did was, not taxpayer money, we went and raised private funds to the tune of close to $750,000 to provide no interest loans to the businesses in our district. It was a huge success, and I think that whether they were new businesses, legacy businesses, everyone needs help in certain times. And so those businesses that came to us, I was happy that we were able to create a program to support them.
All right, well, you know, speaking of money, you know, there's nothing that can hide the fact that we've all been told that, you know, we're tightening belts and we have to tighten, and especially for the city of Los Angeles. So a lot of priorities in terms of, you know, budgetary issues and things like that. So how are you handling what you foresee in the next fiscal for CD12, and how is that going to impact what you want to do or what you can do?
You know, I think that you're absolutely right. We are all going to have to tighten our belt, but you know, the city offers a wide range of different programs. I think what this budget is going to do is focus more on the core services of what people expect from city government. You know, we touch your lives from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. We provide your quality of life. So when you wake up, you know, we want to make sure that when you flip on that switch, that electricity gets there. When you brush your teeth in the morning, you turn on that faucet, that water gets there. The sidewalks you walk on, the streets you drive on, trash being picked up, police, fire, those essential services, core services of what city government is about, I think those are well funded, and I believe that while we might not have all the different bells and whistles of the city, I think our communities are going to get through just fine.
There was a lot of debate about the LAPD and about the funding for the LAPD, and then you're a strong supporter of the LAPD and the safety and security that they provide to the community. But there was a lot of give and take there. How did you feel the conversation went in council chambers about the funding for the LAPD? Because there was conversation about, is there enough recruitment? There was conversation about, why are we funding? We should be diversifying the funding to other organizations. Should we be giving all the money right now? Should we give it to them later? How were you feeling about those conversations, and what's your perspective on it?
Well, as you mentioned, I have been a big supporter of law enforcement. I see one of the responsibilities, actually the main responsibility of being a council member, is keeping my community safe. We unfortunately have had to drop a number of officers, and I think it's imperative that we do hire more officers. But when we're doing that, we needed to make the salaries more attractive. Every law enforcement agency out there is hiring right now, and we needed to stay competitive. People want to be, if you go into law enforcement, you want to be an LAPD officer because they know they are the best of the best. But we wanted to make sure that by raising salaries, we were not only attracting them, but more importantly, too often we were training our officers, investing in that training, just to watch other cities come and take them away from us with certain incentives. What we created in this last sort of contract with LAPD is incentives for staying, so that the longer you stayed, there were different bonuses that we could work in to make sure that we retained our officers. And that is really the most important piece that I am glad that we got in.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think, when you think about the union deals and you think about the increase, for the budget when it comes to salaries, I just immediately thought of cost of living. And of course, cost of living in Los Angeles is pretty intense to begin with. So I just naturally thought that. But the incentivization to stay, I didn't realize that was part of the union negotiations.
Yeah, there's, obviously, we're losing people to retirement. It has been a little bit harder to recruit, but that piece that we can control, that piece where, officers were choosing to leave to go to another city because they would offer a signing bonus. Well, I think we created things within this contract so that we are not spending that money over and over and investing in people just to watch them walk away.
Right, okay, and then obviously one of the huge, and you can't escape it because it just doesn't seem to somewhat move, is the issue of the unhoused and homelessness. So I know that you put in some pretty robust programs in your district, and how are they in regards to getting people off the streets, but more importantly, what is your thought process in what needs to be done to actually make a more direct result to this crisis that we're facing?
Yeah, when I took office, we had 0 beds in Council District 12. I'm proud that in my first term in office, we were able to create hundreds of beds with a couple hundred more on the way. While I always believe that housing is a part of that solution, I think that we need to take a more holistic approach. In Council District 12, when we build shelters, we have to make sure that we have a drug component to it, a drug addiction component, a mental health component into it. But I also think that we need to be doing more. We need to be doing more at the state level and the federal level, because I've always seen mental health as health. And we have a mental illness crisis on our streets. If somebody's having a heart attack on the sidewalk, we pull over and we help that person. When we see someone having a mental illness crisis on our streets, the only tool in our tool belt to deal with this is repetition, is hoping that they accept services on the 7th time that they didn't accept 6 times before. We need to be able to do more in this area and to really treat the mental illness crisis as a health concern, which is something that I've always believed in, and it's something I'm going to continue fighting for.
So what can a city council member do for something that needs a little bit more, up the chain change?
Sure.
I mean, we were talking about what we can do in the city, but then, the county, the state, the federal. what kind of information can we provide, or what kind of change can we elicit that has a more broad effect when it comes to these things?
Yeah, especially being a council member in the city of Los Angeles and having the sort of scope of influence that we do, I think that we do have that relationship with Sacramento. When Los Angeles speaks, I believe that Sacramento actually listens. And so that we need to communicate more with them about conservatorship laws. When we were talking about the federal laws, there are federal laws that we need to change to allow mental health programs to have more beds, because right now those number of beds were restricted. Luckily, we have a mayor that was once a congresswoman. I've been working close with Mayor Bass to try to work at the federal level to create and make sure that laws allow not only for us to be able to invest more, but also for private industry to invest more. Because right now, the number of beds that they allow just doesn't pencil out, and we need to make that incentive so we do create more beds throughout the city of Los Angeles.
And with the 200 beds that you added, did you have any kind of comprehensive understanding of who was taking advantage of those shelters? And are there certain constituents in your district that you see are saying, "Oh, thank goodness this is here now. I have somewhere to lay my head," or how has it played out in your district?
I think it's both. I think that once we created housing, we had, of course, there are people that want to get into shelter. I've always believed that when someone finds themselves unhoused, we need to get to them right away, because that's when we can get them before they spend too much time on the streets. We've gotten people into beds, but we've also had people who are service resistant, and we need to be able to look at different ways, because what is happening out on our city streets, us just allowing people to live and die on our sidewalks, is not humane. I don't understand when people say that we have no right to be able to try to help them. I think it's our responsibility to get help for the people who are living on our streets.
And I was also wondering, along those lines, Inside Safe is one of Mayor Bass's very important programs, but I'm afraid I can't cite exactly where I read this, but I do believe I'm accurate in that 27 into Inside Safe, but then 700 left. So what's happening there, in that we are, we make a little bit of an inroad, but then we lose that momentum with certain people. Is it the mental health and the drug addiction issues?
I think anytime we have a new mayor, we give that mayor the opportunity to, the ability to, work on certain programs that I think are important to that person. And with the mayor, obviously, Inside Safe program was something. Now, while that should be the first step into moving to permanent housing, what I think we've seen is we cannot just keep looking at this as this is some, just a housing problem.
Right.
Okay, we cannot build our way out of this problem. And so we have to pay attention to that drug addiction and that mental illness side. A few years ago, the only thing that people talked about was the housing, that we just didn't have enough housing. But I think people are starting to realize that it's much, much more.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in the fact that everyone I have ever spoken about at this, the best of intentions, the most earnest of intentions, the most compassionate of intentions, and yet it just needs a little bit more comprehensive nuance with all of this. The layers are pretty profound.
Sure.
But along those lines, working with Mayor Bass, what are some of the committees that you're working with and working on with the council right now?
Yeah, so I'm on some pretty big ones. I chair the Public Works Committee, which is been very important to me. Being someone who's worked in the city for many, many years, I understand the importance of making sure that we're tending to our infrastructure. Infrastructure is not always the shiniest penny, right? It's not more police officers, it's something, but it's something necessary we need to do. We have an aging infrastructure system that we need to be tending to, and I think by having that knowledge and experience as the chair of Public Works, it's going to allow me that sort of avenue to address those concerns that I've had for many, many years. I also sit on the Public Safety Committee, which you said earlier, which everyone knows is very, very important to me. I also Planning Land Use Management Committee. And so those are obviously some big ones that we get to look at, really sort of all the important aspects of how the city is run. And I'm really proud that Councilmember Krikorian tapped me to be on those committees.
That's a lot of committees, and there's another one, right?
Yes, the Neighborhoods Committee. Neighborhoods Committee is important because this is the committee that overlooks not only animal services, which is a very important subject to me, but overlooks our neighborhood council system. That is a system where local community members can get involved to be a part of shaping what their individual little communities look like. And so I'm proud to be on all those committees. They're as I named them, I mean, those are some pretty big communities, and I just appreciate Councilmember Krikorian putting me on them.
So I'm going to talk about the not so shiny penny that is integral to our existence, public works.
Mm-hmm.
The budget, kind of squished public works somewhat. Are you worried about the aging infrastructure and the lights and the streets and all the things that need to be brought up to this century?
Yeah, I think that's our responsibility as a city of Los Angeles. When we see our structure, some of our infrastructure that was post World War II installed, we have to understand. The thing is that it cannot just become a major issue when something goes wrong, right? It's our responsibility to take a look at those different things. But like we all said, this is a belt tightening, budget year, and we've had to decide where our different priorities are. And while mine will always be focused on those different things like that, yes, there were some cuts, but I still think that we're going to be able to deliver the main things that people want when it comes to public works issues.
But there's a fun thing. land use. And land use is something that you've actually been very optimistic and upbeat about, especially in your district. You've got the new Porter Ranch Park. So how is that playing out, and what is it? That sounds like a real asset to the community.
Oh, there's something called Quimby funds. And what this was a state law set aside so that when people built apartments or homes, they had to set aside money for green space. Well, the Porter Ranch community is an expansive one, and that has grown ever since I've been living in Council District 12. What we've been doing recently is really keeping all the Quimby funds so that instead of just small little pocket parks, we could create one really nice sized park for the whole entire community to enjoy. So it's a 50-acre park that has a amphitheater on it so that we can have Sunday concerts. Bringing the community together is something that I try to do as often as possible. Create those community events that really, again, stress getting to know your neighbor. And so really excited about that. Really excited that we have the normal basketball courts, and there's going to be hiking trails because it is up on top of Porter Ranch. But of course, everyone's favorite new sport, we're going to have brand new pickleball.
You didn't even have to say it.
Brand new pickleball courts, which apparently I have to try because that it seems to be the thing that most people, whenever we're talking about rec and parks, people are saying we need more pickleball courts. So we've heard, we've listened, and now we're going to be building some at the new park.
Well, thank goodness. I do want to also ask along those lines, with environment and with, obviously we realize that the outside is imperative, especially during the pandemic. It saved our lives in a number of ways. But there have been some concerns in your district, and so I was wondering, the Sunshine Canyon landfill, I know there's been concern. Yeah. So what's the status of the unorthodox smell coming out of that area?
Yeah, having the landfill in our backyard has been an issue that we've had to deal with in Council District 12 for many, many years. While we've badly needed the rains that we've had
a lot.
And while that's contributed to many different issues that we're dealing with in the district, one of those major issues is dealing with that water up at our landfill and with the problems that has created. And so that has created a more odor program, more odor issues in our district, and something that, the reason why I introduced a motion to bring them to the table to really, really take a look at making sure that they are doing everything in their power to control those odors. Because again, this is, Council District 12, my focus has always been on, quality of life issues, and that's a big one. And so I'm hopeful that some of the measures that they're taking, have taken in years past, that have kept the odors away, that now the rains that are sort of slowing down, that we're going to be able to address those issues and make sure that those odors, aren't persistent and keep going on. But we're going to be dealing with them, and hopefully they're going to come up with a solution.
Well, that's good to know. And if people, how you're just probably making sure that you share that information as broadly as possible so that everybody knows what's going on.
Absolutely, but I think most importantly, what we need to do is, while we're tending to those immediate problems, is to look at long-term solutions. Thousands and thousands of years of civilization, we still dig a hole and put our trash in it. There has to be a better solution, and so that's something that we are committed to trying to make sure that we are taking a look at all the technology out there, because there has to be something better than what we are currently doing.
Sure. No, I'm sure everyone agrees with that. Even not putting it on a barge and sending it to some other country is not an idea either. And do you feel like things are pretty clear and wrapped up with the Aliso Canyon closure? Because I know you were really working diligently to make sure that was all solved.
Yeah, living in Porter Ranch, my family had to deal with that, directly. It was an issue for tens of thousands of people. Many people didn't even know that we had the gas fields, located behind us. I understand the need for it. I understand the need for the gas currently, but I also feel that we need to be moving in a way so that we can move forward in closing that Aliso Canyon facility down without affecting the stability of our energy in our region. The reality is, I do need those. That gas to, turn my turbines to create air conditioning in the summer. I need it for heating in the winter. But I've asked the governor, and I've asked our state, that we need to actually come up with a plan to actually close it. I know there's been numbers thrown around, 2027, we're going to close it. Well, the problem is, I see nothing moving towards that, going that way.
Nobody's packing.
And so, what I don't want to see is the same thing that happened at a different area where the community was fighting. Well, we need to close it immediately. No, we need to come up with a plan. Look, I just want a plan with metrics. I need the state to come up with it. The governor has said that we need to close this facility down, but I would just like to see something in place to make sure that we are moving in the right direction.
Do you feel like there's open communication? Do you feel like you're hearing anything from them, or is it all one way? What's going on? What's going on?
Currently, I don't, like I said, we have the date set, but yet I don't see us doing anything differently. Now, we need to create a plan. There are millions of people that rely on that gas field there. Well, if we're going to move towards closing in 2027, well, we better start fast and quickly understanding what we need to do to change it so that we can have stability in our area.
Very true indeed. But utilizing the benefit of human ingenuity and human, you have a bike transit area that you are creating, or have created, So what are your hopes and dreams for just that, moving towards a more ecological way of life for your district?
Well, one of the things that I have been a big proponent of, we've said over and over in the city of Los Angeles that we need to move people towards, whether bicycles or public transportation. Okay, that has been actually a focus of mine. But as you've heard in the recent stories about what's been happening on some of our public transportation and the tragedies that have happened, is that if we're going to ask people to get out of their cars and rely more on public transportation, then we need to do three things. We need to make it clean, reliable, and more importantly than anything, we have to make sure that it is safe. And right now we are failing. Metro's not succeeding in doing that. While we have the numbers of ridership have been going up over the last, I believe it is 17 months, we need to be doing better. We have the World Cup coming here. We have Olympics in 28 here. We are going to be on the world stage. We are going to have additional millions of people here in our city. We need to figure a way to get them around from place to place, utilizing public transportation, making sure that it's reliable, but making sure that when our visitors are here, that they don't leave saying that they felt unsafe here in our city of Los Angeles, because the Olympics is supposed to highlight the city of Los Angeles. We need to show our best, and I'm hopeful that we are moving in that direction.
Well, there have been so many different plans on the metro. I mean, LAPD, Sheriff's Department, private security, LAPD. I mean, when are you as council expecting the new plan for how to make sure that the expansion of these public transportation services across Los Angeles are in fact safe? Because I might actually put safe as the first one,
Sure.
and then convenient, and then easy.
No, absolutely. Safety is the most important component of that. Now, I know people hear about the sheriffs and LAPD and this new ambassador program that
Right.
they're combining, and they think like, okay, you have all this sort of like mix of different things like that. They actually are working extremely well together. Now that we are moving in the direction of understanding that the presence of people, whether in law enforcement or in this ambassador program, that visual component is there, we are seeing a shift. They meet, probably once a week with each other to make sure that their strategies and operations and everything runs smoothly. So that program is actually working very, very, very well.
Okay.
And so I'm hopeful that can be expanded, and so that we can bring back, public transportation as a viable method of getting around the city of Los Angeles. I'm someone who took public transportation back when it was called the RTD. Me and actually former Mayor Garcetti went to the same junior high. We took the bus home every single day, public transportation. I was 12 or 13 at the time. I don't know if I let my 12 or 13-year-old go on the buses by themselves these days. And so we need to create that again. But again, like you said, safety has to be number one.
Good. All right. Well, on an upbeat, positive note, you're back and you're reelected. You're back in this term. What are your priorities for this particular term, and what are your hopes and dreams? Whether they can be realized or not is inconsequential at this moment. Just what would your dream be?
I think my focus has never changed. Being someone who was raised in that district, supporting law enforcement is not something that I learned and thought of when I started working as a council member. It's a lesson that was taught to me by my community. And I think it's important that my community understands that is a priority of mine, because I know it's a priority of theirs. Feeling safe, making sure that we can stay in a community where your child can ride their bike out of eyesight and not be worried. I always like to say that Council District 12 is the last slice of Mayberry here in the city of Los Angeles, because it is somewhere where you get to know your neighbors. Making sure that safety is there. We are the safest district in the city of Los Angeles, and it's my intention to always keep it that way. And so, that's always going to be a focus, but creating, new businesses, new jobs. The city of Los Angeles has to stop treating businesses as an adversary, and looking at them as a partner, and as the people who employ the people who live here in the city of Los Angeles, and help put food on their tables. So we need to be working more closely with them. Council District 12 has one of the largest industrial areas. Not a lot of people know this. Has one of the largest industrial areas in the city of Los Angeles. So really working with them to make sure that we have the right companies that are coming in, making sure that we have the sort of right inventory when there are inventory available to us. There's a lot of people who want to change that manufacturing zoning to something else. It's important for us to keep it that way, to make sure that when we do lure those companies, then that we have the right inventory to give to them.
So if people want more information about what's happening in your district, what's the best way for them to find out?
So they just go to city12.lacity.gov and sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is where you'll find out all the information of not what we're doing here just at City Hall, but activities that are happening within the district and opportunities to volunteer. And so all the information you need is right there. Please sign up for the newsletter, find out what's going on in your community, and be a part of it.
That's fantastic. Well, it was wonderful having you back in, and we look forward to seeing you again. And I know exactly what you mean by Mayberry. There may be people that may not remember the allusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks. And that's a wrap on This LA Currents.